All right, so let's look at some quadratic graphs and let's review the properties. And we're going to start with just one at a time. And so the first one is a vertex. And I need you to remember that the vertex is your middle point. And so on this graph here, the middle point is -1, 8. Now, this middle point is at the top of the graph, so it would be considered a maximum point. All right, so you try this graph. Just what's the vertex is all I'm asking you for right now. Okay, and so the vertex, again, is your middle point, and it's right here. It's at 1, 9. And so is this vertex a minimum or a maximum? Since it's at the top of the graph, again, it would be a maximum. All right, so try again. Again, what is the vertex of the graph? And so the vertex, again, is your middle point, and your middle point is right here, -3, -1. Would this vertex be a minimum or a maximum? And since this time it's at the bottom of the graph, it would be considered a minimum. And I have one more. Okay, the last graph. Again, I'm going to ask you just for the vertex. And so remember, the vertex is the middle point here is 0, -5. Is that a minimum or a maximum? And since it's at the bottom of the graph, it would be called a minimum. Okay, let's go back to the first graph, and now let's look at just the axis of symmetry. And when we talk about the axis of symmetry, remember it's a line, and it's a vertical line that goes through the center of the graph. Well, the center of the graph was the vertex. So here's my not so straight vertical line, and it has an equation. And the equation is x equals, because it's vertical, and what's the x value? Well, it crosses the x at -1. So x equals -1, which goes back to your vertex, right? That's the x value of your vertex. All right, so you try this one. Right now, I just want to know what the axis of symmetry is. And hopefully you said that it goes down the middle of the graph. That's not a very straight line at all. Let's try that again. And it crosses the x right here at +1. So that means the axis of symmetry is x equals +1. All right, let's try it again. This time, axis of symmetry. Okay, vertical line straight down the center, and it crosses the graph at -3. So x equals -3. Again, goes back to the x value of your vertex. And the last one, again, go ahead and tell me what the axis of symmetry is. This time, it goes through the y-intercept as well. So my axis of symmetry goes through the x-axis at 0. Well, that's the x value of the vertex. So x equals 0. All right, next property. Let's go look at the zeros of the function. So remember, your zeros are your x-intercepts or your roots. And there are two of them in this particular graph. It's where they cross the x-axis. So we could say -3, 0 and 1, 0. All right, you try this one. Tell me what are the zeros of the function. So again, it crosses twice. It's where it crosses the x-axis. And it crosses at -2, 0 and 4, 0. All right, this one, tell me what the zeros of the function are. And here it crosses at -4 and -2. So -4, 0, -2, 0. And one more. This last graph, go ahead again and tell me what the zeros are. So it was -3 and +3. So -3, 0, +3, 0. All right, and then the last property, which is a review, is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So here my y-intercept is 6, and I write it as an ordered pair, so it's 0, 6. Next graph, go ahead and tell me what the y-intercept is. If you look here, it crosses the y at 8. So the y-intercept is 0, 8. All right, next one. Go ahead and tell me what the y-intercept is. And it crosses up here at 8 again. So it's 0, 8. And then the last graph, the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is actually the same thing as the vertex this time. So 0, -5. Okay, so that's a review of the different properties. Now, if I don't give you a graph, if I instead give you an equation, then I need you to go to the Desmos calculator. And if you forget how to get there, go back to Google Classroom and click on Classwork. And over here on the side where it says Topics, if you find the one that says Calculator, and then you can click on Desmos. Okay. All right, so we're going to type in the equation, except I forgot what it was. Y equals -x² + 1. So type it exactly how it says, y equals -x. And it's kind of cool that it starts typing or graphing the equation for you. When you come down here and put the squared in, it turns it into your quadratic. So -x² + 1. Right? All right. So we want to find the important pieces. And if you click on the points, it will actually tell you what the ordered pairs are. So my vertex is 0, 1. And it's at the top of the graph, which means it's a maximum. My axis of symmetry then goes through that vertex. And the cool thing about Desmos, if you want to go graph it to see if you're correct, if I want to say x equals 1, well, that doesn't go through the vertex. So if I say x equals 0, now it goes through the vertex. Okay, remember it matches up to the x value of the vertex. All right, two more things. The y-intercept this time is also the same as the vertex. And then if I click back on this equation, these 2 points are my zeros. So -1, 0, and +1, 0. All right, so you try this one. Go ahead and graph it on Desmos and then answer the questions. And if you graphed this one, I'm going to clear out the ones I have here just by pressing the X. And then you can click in the box and then it will let you type in a new equation. So y equals x minus 3 squared minus 4. Right? Minus 3 squared minus 4. So your zeros were 1, 0, and 5, 0. Your vertex was 3, -4. Your y-intercept was 0, 5. And then you had to figure out your axis of symmetry. And your axis of symmetry is always x equals, and it's the x value of the vertex, which was -3, or +3, sorry. And you can see it crosses. All right, I have a few more questions. This one says, a graph of a quadratic function is shown on the grid. Which coordinates best represent the vertex of the graph? Okay, and we've just practiced this a whole bunch. You should be really good at it now. The vertex is the middle point, so it's 1, -2. Okay, the next question says, choose the correct axis of symmetry for the equation f of x equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 8. And I need you to graph it on Desmos. That way you can actually see what the axis of symmetry is. Okay, so again, if we delete these ones, and then we type it in, and it says f of x equals, and you can actually type the f of x equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 8. And if I click here, I can see my vertex is -1, 5, which means my axis of symmetry should be x equals -1. So the answer here was D. All right, next question. What are the zeros of the graph below? And remember, your zeros are also your x-intercept. And it looks like it's about -1.5 and +5.5, which means it's the answer here with your fractions, -3/2 and 11/2. And last question, what is the y-intercept of the graph below? Okay, remember your y-intercept is where it crosses this y-axis. So if I go down, it crosses right here at -3. So my y-intercept is 0, -3.